Welcome everyone to the third Thursday meetup of the West Orlando WordPress Meetup Group. I'm Rob Watson, a co-organizer and host. West Orlando WordPress is an official WordPress meetup group affiliated with the WordPress Orlando and WordCamp US meetup groups. Often people ask why hackers are targeting their seemingly unexciting small business websites, and yet these smaller websites are often receiving the brunt of malicious attacks. Hackers understand economies of scale. As such, smaller WordPress sites are always under attack by bots looking for signs of vulnerability. Fortunately, there are a number of easy ways to protect your site by making good security decisions. We'll go through some of the most common methods hackers use to get into WordPress websites through some entertaining and sometimes scary stories. You'll learn key security principles to help you make good decisions to prevent intrusions, detect them, and recover from a security event if you are ever compromised. Kathy Zant is an internationally recognized speaker on security, marketing, and data-driven website development. She's spoken at countless events worldwide, both online and on stage. And she's been an organizer for both WordCamp Phoenix twice and WordCamp US. A frequent guest on numerous podcasts about WordPress and emerging technologies, she is also co-host of the Cadence Beat, Do the Woo, and WP Motivate, and is a frequent co-host on This Week in WordPress. An executive producer of Open, the open source documentary about the WordPress community, she is passionate about your stories and believes everyone's voice deserves to be heard. At this point, I'd like to invite everyone to mute their microphones for the presentation. Kathy, thank you for being our presenter this evening. The time is now yours.
Awesome. Wow. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. I am so excited to be here. And if you guys ever wanted to say, I am so lucky, you are joining a security talk on a very exciting day in WordPress security. There has been so much happening today, and we're going to use some of the news of what has been happening over this week to sort of exhibit and as an example of what happens with WordPress security, because this has been kind of one of those banner weeks. It happens every once in a while where a major vulnerability is discovered and hackers get busy exploiting it. So a couple of days ago, the Bricks builder vulnerability was found. The security researcher Calvin Alkin reached out to the developers, let them know what he had found. They patched everything, but because of the nature of the vulnerability, hackers look for these things. They look for, the ripest fruit, the easiest exploits. And when they find something that's super easy to exploit, they get very busy. This was a very easy to exploit vulnerability. It is an unauthenticated, meaning you don't have to log in, you don't have to have a subscriber account or any kind of other account to exploit this. Anybody can exploit it, and it's a remote code execution vulnerability. So you can put a script on any server anywhere in the world, a hacked server perhaps that you had hacked previously, and make a call to a vulnerable website, and it goes and gets that hacked script, and boom, that site is hacked. It's super easy to do. And as soon as that patch was applied, hackers got busy. So we're seeing attacks happening right now. The Bricks group on Facebook is extremely busy with people trying to figure out what the heck's going on and how did this happen so fast. Today, Quickly, which is another page builder, has a similar vulnerability. This one can only be exploited if you have a contributor or higher account. So it's not going to be exploited as widely, but it's a very similar type of vulnerability. So lots happening right now in the WordPress security space. And today, let's talk about this. Let's figure out what's going on. Why are hackers targeting small business websites, and what can we do about it? A lot of people that I've talked to about WordPress security, they're like, it's just my cat blog. It's just my blog. It's just my small business. I'm insignificant. Why are they targeting me? And we're seeing that today. There's lots of people in the Bricks group who are like, why is this happening to me? How do they know that I'm running Bricks? How do they know that I have a vulnerable plugin or theme on my site? Why? And my best answer is it's spray and pray. They have a script. it's not Darth Vader who's doing this, but it's Darth Vader who's written a script and has all of his little like script command and control center types of things that are going off and just spraying and praying, and they're just hitting every website, whether it's WordPress or not. And if the vulnerability is there, it basically hacks the site, puts something on it, and then phones home and says, got one. So they are looking wherever they can. They know these vulnerabilities are out there, and a lot of hackers are getting lucky today, and it's really unfortunate. Just some information about me. I'm a former developer. I was a project manager and then had a hard time getting developers to do what I want them to do. So I taught myself how to code. My first security incident happened in 1999. I inherited a server from a coworker and it got hacked. So that's the way everybody gets into security. They get hacked, and then they're like, okay, I got to learn everything that there is to know about security. So that's how it happens. I have been the director of marketing at Cadence, where I was also helping iTheme security and solid security. I have recently moved on to a new position, but I've spent a good part of today watching everything that's happening in WordPress security. This is something that's really close to my heart. And so any opportunity that I can have to bring empowerment to you so that you can make better decisions to keep your site safe and to keep your digital life safe, I am going to do it. So who is attacking your small business website? It's not one person, it's a script. It's most of these attacks, whether they are brute force trying to log in as your admin account, or if they are trying to find a vulnerability on your site, these are just scripts. So something gets programmed and they have a database of WordPress sites, they have a database of URLs, and they just basically spray and pray and wait for one of those scripts to find something. So it's not just one guy, but it's a guy with scripts. And the primary reason why they're doing it is money. It really comes down to money. They want your server. Even if your site gets no traffic whatsoever, the fact that you have a server, a WordPress site, and a server that's live on the internet with resources that can run PHP and other things is very attractive to them. So they want your domain reputation a lot of times if they're doing spam, and they want to run spam links to all of their casino sites and Viagra sites and all of these other things. So your domain reputation is very valuable. They want to use your site for phishing kits so that they can email unsuspecting people that click on a link and it is not flagged as phishing yet in the Google red screen of death. Your domain reputation is still good for a while until Google detects it. They want to put malware on that site and infect computers. They want to put backdoors so that they can reinfect things when you think you've got your site cleaned. It all boils down to one thing. These people are trying to make money, and you have something that's valuable to them. They can use what you've got. So that's why they're doing it. And why they're targeting WordPress? Well, WordPress is powering over 40% of the internet, and they understand economy of scale. Like with this bricks vulnerability that is being attacked right now, I don't have the data, but from things that I've seen in the past, this is what they'll do. So they'll hack 10 computers or 10 websites, and those 10 websites have server resources. Those IP lists or IPs aren't on any blacklists, so they can use those servers to go attack more servers. So they get these command and control types of situations happening where they have one server that's telling these other hacked servers what to do. And they understand economies of scale. If they can get 100 small sites, small servers hacked, it's as good as having a data center. So they expect you, small businesses, to have less security. Sure, they can go hack the New York Times or any large publication that is using, they could hack Taylor Swift's website that uses WordPress. They can hack a large site like that that's getting a lot of traffic, put malware on it, and infect a lot of computers. But it's a heck of a lot easier to attack a site like yours. Your site probably doesn't have as much security as Taylor Swift or the New York Times, right? So it's a lot easier for them to hack into your small business site. How are they getting in? Well, we have the bricks type of vulnerability, the remote code execution vulnerability. That's pretty bad. That's happening right now. That happens every once in a while, a couple times a year max, I'd say. We get something like this that's very easily exploitable, that we see exploited very quickly, software vulnerabilities. But more often than not, I see a lot of poor authentication, people reusing passwords or passwords that aren't very good that get brute forced. And then we have lots of situations where people put 30 sites in a cPanel. So you have one site that gets hacked in your cPanel, but you have 30 other sites hosted there. You get 30 hacked sites because all of those sites are running under the same user on the server, running PHP using the same permissions. So if you get one site hacked, you get 30 sites hacked. We'll talk a little more about that later. The risks to small businesses are pretty significant, especially when you're doing like e-commerce, right? Now, this statistic came from an AT&T study that 60% of small companies go out of business within 6 months of falling victim to a data breach or a cyber attack. Just the cyber insurance, all of the issues that you have to deal with. The fact, like if you have an e-commerce site and you are taking credit card payments, the payment card industry data security standards, that's what PCI DSS stands for. They want you, if you're dealing with customer card data, to be extremely secure. I've seen plenty of WooCommerce sites that get hacked and a JavaScript skimmer is put on the checkout so that as someone is typing in their credit card number, that malicious script is sending that credit card number to the attacker. And yeah, for some reason, I don't know why, but Visa doesn't like that. So there's a lot of risks to small businesses. Plus the fact, if you have a learning management system and you have customers' personally identifiable information, and an IP address is personally identifiable information, according to cybersecurity standards, you are required by many jurisdictions that if you get hacked, that you need to notify your users that their information has been exposed. GDPR, California, Nevada, I think pretty much all jurisdictions are requiring this now. So if you have an intrusion, there is that step that you have to take. So all these people who have customer information on their sites and are experiencing this breach happening, they have to assume that customer information is being leaked somewhere. And so they have to notify customers if they have customer data on those particular sites. There's a lot of risks. So you want to protect your site. But AT&T also did a study saying, oh, of course, they're selling to enterprise, right? So they do all kinds of studies about proactive security practices. They actually found that those companies that have proactive security practices, that they're actually like doing a incident response plan, that they are actively putting firewalls and are going through the rigors of security process and procedure, they have better business outcomes. There's more sales growth and they have better profit margins. My theory is that if someone is doing those types of going through the rigors of good security practices for their online business, they're going through good practices with sales and many other things as well. So I think it's just, it exhibits a good mindset when you have somebody doing well with security. No active security policies and procedures, 6% sales growth and 3% profit margins, not quite so good. It's just a mindset. You know, if you're thinking proactively about your business, it's going to show up in a lot of different ways. So security is, I think, and WordPress Security especially, is a great place for you to learn about security, because the security practices you put in place for WordPress, you're going to have to start using good security or password policies, two-factor authentication. That trickles over into everything else. So for me, WordPress security is empowerment. If you go through the rigors of good WordPress security, go through a site audit and make sure that you have everything in place that you need in order to secure your WordPress site, you're going to start thinking about your bank password differently. You're going to start thinking about how all your passwords are stored, and you're going to think about maybe how important it is to update Chrome on your computer and making sure that everybody connects to your network is secure because of the trickle down effect of all of these security issues. Like I said, security is a mindset. Get a good mindset about these things. It's going to affect everything. I've seen a lot of strange security thoughts happening around this whole bricks vulnerability, and some really bad advice being given to people. So there's definitely always going to be more need for security education, and I'm here to do that. So let's talk about this. Whose responsibility is this? There's a lot of angry people, angry at the security researcher who found this vulnerability, responsibly disclosed it. Why do you have to find these things? There's anger, because there's people with hacked sites and they want to blame someone. They want to blame the bricks developer for what's with your, I was going to buy this and now I think I'm not going to. I will say that bricks, from everything I can tell, responded very quickly to the security report. And that's something you want to see in a plugin or theme developer. I've seen a lot of plugin developers that don't respond to security reports or try to obfuscate that there was a security concern in their change logs. You want to work with developers that take security seriously, act quickly to rectify things, and get the word out as quickly as possible to patch your sites. But ultimately, it's your site, isn't it? I've got a bunch of sites as well. Security, if it's your site, open source with great power comes great responsibility. Protecting WordPress, protecting your business, ultimately, it's your responsibility. You've got a site, you've got to protect, and your business that you have to protect. But knowing the landscape of security and knowing what can be leveraged is going to help. So planning is really important. I always advise people to plan that you're going to get hacked. If these people who are going through hacks right now had planned for a hack, they would have backups every few hours, maybe, if they have active transactions happening on their site. An incident response plan, planning for a hack. What's going to happen when we get hacked? Have we tested our backups, making sure that they work, that you can actually do a restore, that they're not corrupted, that they're being stored in a good place off server? Doing a security audit, going over everything. If you plan for a security event, you're going to be way more prepared than if you're not. So you want to uncover and patch things and find problems. I have worked with people. I do security auditing for people, and sometimes people who are well-known people in the WordPress space come to me and say, hey, can you audit this? And I'll go in and I'll think, I'm never going to find anything. This person knows WordPress, and boom, there's a backup freely available with the database password in a WP config available that a hacker could have easily found. I find a lot of times plugins with vulnerabilities that haven't been updated on sites. People who I expected to know better. Auditing helps. Having a process in place. If you have a small business, every 3 months, audit your site. Just take a quick look. And I have got an audit checklist that I can give you at the end of this that you can go through every 3 months and just double check everything that maybe something that the last time you did maintenance, you forgot something somewhere, or did a staging server and oops, we forgot that staging server is there and it's now running vulnerable versions of things that can infect an entire site. Those types of things you can uncover when you're auditing things. Because your website there's a lot of pieces to it. It's not just WP admin. It's not just your password. There's XML RPC. That's a way in. There's your PHP My Admin. Want to double check and make sure that that's well secured. Your hosting panel, SSH, FTP, as well as making sure that HTTP is the S at the end of that. We want to make sure that that is secure as well. There's so many different ways and so many different layers to how a web application works. This is called the OSI model. And it's everything that goes into your website. Now, you might never think about the physical layer, the actual server in the data center at, whatever hosting provider. But if a hacker was able to get into, maybe they were able to socially engineer somebody at the hosting company, or be able to shoulder surf their way into getting a password, those types of things, and get onto the physical premises, that is a vulnerability as well. People don't think about all of this other stuff, but there's a lot to consider. So let's talk first, though, about passwords and authentication. Reusing passwords should not be happening. Oh my gosh, I was helping my daughter's. I'm not even going to give it away. Somebody that works with my daughter, I was helping them do something, and I said, well, okay, I'm going to set up the password and I will put it into the password manager. And they're like, no, just make it this password. I'm like, please no, please don't make me do this. I'm like, okay, you can use that password, but you're going to have a $sign, an exclamation point, and these 4 digits after it. So you're not reusing passwords. Please don't make me do this. I am surprised at how many people are still reusing passwords. It is time now to start using complex passwords, unique passwords everywhere. You have to use a password manager at this point in time. And there is something called the blind password strategy as well. If you're scared of password managers and having everything in a password manager, here's something you can do. You can put the password, like, let's say the first 16 characters goes into your password manager. And then there's 4 digits. Let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's in your brain. And then on the website or your WordPress site or your bank website, you put in that 16-digit password that's in your password manager, and then the 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's what the bank has. That way, if you are concerned that the password manager is ever breached, you have the blind password strategy. So that way you're kind of adding another layer of security there. 2-factor authentication. I don't know what's happening with all this SIM swapping stuff, but I have a video on my YouTube channel about SIM swapping, and about 2 weeks ago, it popped off because SIM swapping was in the news. And I guess it's becoming more and more prevalent. I saw it a lot in the crypto space, but you should be using 2-factor authentication on an authenticator app, and a reputable one at that. Google Authenticator is way better than it used to be. I hate 2-factor authentication as much as anyone else, but it's something that even if you have a 20-character password, there is a non-zero chance that that can be guessed and brute forced. So just adding that extra layer of authentication is incredibly important. There's a new technology called passkeys. Solid Security, which used to be iTheme Security, does have passkeys available in the premium or the pro version of that. Passkeys is also available for Google and many other, who else is doing it? Square, I think, has it. Or is it Stripe? Stripe has it as a second factor. TikTok even has passkeys now. This is I'm not going to go into how it all works. There's a video on my YouTube channel that explains what passkeys are if you're interested. It's about 7 minutes long, but it's going to replace the password. If you can use passkeys anywhere, use it, because passkeys aren't something that can be phished, and it's not something that can be brute forced. And then operating on the principle of least privilege. I see a lot of people with WordPress who are like, okay, well, here's the admin password for WordPress. And what you should be doing instead of just having one login that you share with everyone is each person who needs to do something on your site gets their own individual login, and they get only what they need to do. So if all I need to do on a website is post blog posts, all I need is editor access. If you have somebody who's just contributing, give them contributor access. And it takes away, if that account gets hacked, there's less damage that a hacker can do. So that's called the principle of least privilege. Only give access to people to the things that they need in order to do their job. Jade in the front office, who just needs to change a bio on the website, does not need access to update all the plugins. So you create a special account for her so that Jane can log in and change a bio on the website and just tweak a couple of things. But she doesn't need all of the plugins. She doesn't need all of the admin tools on a WordPress site. So those are ways that you can protect authentication. And then protecting your software, keeping all software updated. That means plugins, themes, core. There are features now in WordPress to do automated updates. So you can set your you can set core plugins and themes, and you can even go through and say, well, I want these plugins to automatically update if there's ever any problem. I can set all of them to do that, or maybe just a few. You can make that determination on a case-by-case basis, but setting up automated updates for the plugins and themes and core is a great thing, especially if you're doing backups, regular backups, just to make sure, like if somebody had that Bricks vulnerability and they had automated updates set for Bricks, it gets patched automatically. Then they don't have to worry about going in and logging into like 40 sites and updating everything. Making sure that your FTP application is updated, all your browsers, your system, OS, making sure your computer. Yeah, we need to talk about this. This is another big hairy thing. Cookie theft, info stealers on devices, whether it's your phone or it's your personal computer. We are now starting to see WordPress sites getting hacked because computers are getting hacked and authentication cookies are being stolen, and hackers are using that to log into things. You may have noticed, I don't know if you've noticed, I know I have, but I know that when I log into my bank now, I have a session of like 20 minutes to hurry up and get my business done before they log me out. That's kind of new. That's only been happening like in the last year. And a good friend of mine, Thomas Rafe, who works at where we watch your website and has the data to show it, wrote a blog post and has done a ton of research on these info stealers. So keep your WordPress website safe. Keep your computer safe by making sure you've got antivirus on your computer and making sure that you are updating the software on your computer, because that can be an intrusion vector for your WordPress website. And there's a lot of people who are like, oh, nobody's going to hack Word. That's a lot of work for hacking WordPress. But guess what? WordPress cookies last 48 hours. If you click that box that says, remember me, it lasts 2 weeks. So those cookies, if you're not logging out, because if you go and click log out, it kills the cookie, the session's gone, there's no vulnerability there. But if you just like me, who I just love like being able to power up my computer, I'm logged into all my stuff, it's a vulnerability if you're not keeping your computer patched. So really important there. And if you're not using software, whether it's a plugin or a theme or software on your computer, if you aren't using it, it's better to just delete that software. Don't just deactivate the plugin and say, oh, well, it's not vulnerable because it's not active. I've seen plenty of vulnerabilities that have been exploited because the code base is still there. Some of them you can exploit that way, some of them you can't, but it's still just way better to just delete things that you're not actively using. So one example was File Manager. There's a plugin called File Manager, and it gives you like a little directory tree, and you can basically allows you to, it's like you have a file manager and it's in your WP admin. Super handy if you need to, if you don't want to log into FTP, but you want to manipulate the files there. But it's not necessary for your front end site visitors. And it's something that you're only going to be using for a short period of time. Well, File Manager, people would deactivate it. And there was a vulnerability a few years ago where deactivated, but still resident on the site, File Manager had a vulnerability that was very actively exploited. Oh, geez, I want to say 2019 is when that happened. Seen it happen. So just remove, if it's not necessary for the front end of your site, remove that from your WordPress admin. Here's something that I always get into arguments with people about, but I've seen some things. Functional isolation. One site per server-based user. cPanel likes to do this add-on domains. You can put like, I've seen people put 100 sites in a cPanel. The worst hack I ever cleaned up was 30 sites in a cPanel. and one site had a reused password. It was an agency, this guy down in Brazil, and he had 30 customers in this one install. And he had given admin access to one of his customers so that they could update content. They probably would have been just fine with editor access. That password had been reused. Somebody got in and went and overwrote the 404 page for that one site, one out of 30 sites. That one site overwrote the 404, put a backdoor in there, added JavaScript, appended just one line of JavaScript that was a malicious redirect to every single JavaScript file within that entire hosting account. So 30 sites with all of their JavaScript files redirecting to a bad neighborhood. So this agency is like, help. We need to get this cleaned up. It was pretty easy to clean up. We just downloaded the whole site, just did a search and replace, got rid of that one line of code, and then tried to upload it back to the server. And there wasn't enough space on the server because it was like at 90%. So we had to do each individual. That was a pain, but it affected all 30 of his sites. So you don't want to put a ton of sites into one cPanel, because if one site gets hacked, just assume that they are all hacked. One site for each function. So if you have WooCommerce and LearnDash, and you have all of these different things that you're doing as a part of your business, I would put the learning management and all of that functionality on one particular install, separated from WooCommerce and everything that's happening there. Isolate things as much as possible. It makes it easier for troubleshooting. It makes it easier if something goes wrong. You want to be able to isolate your marketing site if that gets hacked from your customer data, because, I don't secure my test sites the same way I secure my bank accounts, right? Like if somebody gets into my test site, I'll just clean it up later. Who cares, right? It's my test site. But if somebody gets in my bank account, that's a problem. So you're going to apply different security rules based on different functionality. Your backups need to be off server. There are great plugins like Updraft that'll back up your site, and it'll just be right there on your server. Nice and convenient, right? You'll have to assume that each one of those backups, if your site does get hacked, is also corrupted because the hacker had access to them. I have seen hackers get into sites and wipe information out of log files that they were there. So you want to have your site backed up off server, someplace away from the PHP processes that are running there. And I would even recommend that you back up your log files elsewhere as well. Because if you do get hacked, you want to have some evidence of what actually happened. So making sure that you have backups, especially if you have an incident where you have to provide information for cybersecurity insurance or anything like that, they're going to want all of the forensic evidence. If you ever do get backed up, the first thing isn't getting rid of malware. First thing is backing up all of the evidence, making sure you have a copy of what happened. With all of your backups, you want to test restoration, right? So if something does happen, even if a plugin update goes wonky, you want to make sure that you can quickly and easily restore from a backup. So you want to test that process as well. All right, protecting access. Cloudflare is not just for performance. They have great security tools as well. Yes, you can use a security plugin and Cloudflare because you're putting Cloudflare on before anybody ever gets to your site. You have DNS settings that you set up Cloudflare. They also have a great product, which is an alternative to CAPTCHA called Turnstile. That is great for your forms if you're getting a lot of like bot activity on forms, or even for carding attacks. That can happen a lot on commerce sites where people are testing to see if a card is actually good. So I recommend using Cloudflare, especially just having it set up. If you ever get DDoSed and they have that, I'm under attack right now, you just go through that process and it's already set up for you. Plus there's performance opportunities there as well. The faster you can detect a problem, the faster you can fix that problem. So making sure that your host, your server, something, a plugin is scanning for file changes. Scanning for malware. Malware can be a separate file. Malware can be appended to a JavaScript file. Malware can be in your WP config. Malware can be in your images and in your uploads folder. Malware can be anywhere. You have to assume that everywhere is vulnerable if your site gets hacked. So scanning for new files, scanning for file changes of existing known files, monitoring on your network, monitoring any kind of malicious activity. I'm going to recommend Solid Security as the plugin of choice. They are doing so much cool stuff with Solid right now. That's one of the stellar liquid web brands, and Timothy Jacobs is the developer on that. He's one of the smartest guys I know in WordPress security. They do file change detection as well as passkeys and all kinds of other stuff. If you want an audit checklist, you can go to zant.com /FL-meetup. There's a form there that you can fill out, and you can get on my newsletter if you want to and get the audit checklist, or you can just get the audit checklist. See, you get to choose your journey. And if you want to get on the newsletter, I'm trying to mail better. But I mail sporadically. I did mail this morning about the bricks and the quickly vulnerabilities. Wanted to get that information out there as fast as I could. Also, my YouTube channel, just Kathy Zant on YouTube. I do all kinds of security tutorials. It's not just about WordPress. It's also about SIM swapping attacks, info stealers. I'm going to try to drag a few of my friends in the WordPress security space on to talk about what's happened with Quickly and Bricks sometime in the next couple of weeks. So you can subscribe to me there. But yeah, the newsletter is probably the easiest way to stay in touch. But I am sure you guys have questions, and I am here to answer all of those questions.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I've got to go back and review this recording and make a whole bunch more notes than I was able to make. This is really comprehensive, and it's got me thinking a lot more about what I need to be doing as well. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very happy to share my years in the trenches cleaning hack sites. I finally did the math last year. A friend of mine asked how many sites I had cleaned, and I'm like, well, let's do the math. I don't know. And it was over 3,000 sites that I had cleaned over the course of a year and a half. And I didn't consider myself a security expert, but I knew enough about security to be dangerous, and I knew enough about WordPress to know that when the hacker had moved the giant purple sofa into the living room, I knew what didn't belong there, right? So it made the learning much easier, and had some really good teachers as well. So I'm happy to share the knowledge as much as possible with everyone else.
Awesome.